On Thursday, educators from around the area gathered in Burlington's historic Grandview Farm to themselves learn something new. They were there to hear details about the new education standards and learn ways to implement them in their classrooms. They also had a bit of fun with electricity, a live bird, and scientists. Burlington Public Schools Science Center's Sean Musselman explains.
Today's colloquium meeting was all about the Massachusetts Next Generation Science Standards, which were adopted in the past week. The challenge for us as science curriculum coordinators is to implement these new standards, which really have a greater emphasis on the doing or the practice of science, along with a balance of the science content that is more traditionally made up science standards.
The standards themselves are quite detailed and lengthy, but what do they attempt to accomplish in terms of student experience and education?
We're asking kids to engage in what we say are 8 practices of learning science, and those 8 practices really, at the end of the day, they involve students asking questions, building models, collecting data, organizing tables, being able to create arguments to and against a thought process, to demonstrate their knowledge graphically, and really to engage in science much more so than just what we typically had sometimes students do, memorize bold print in a textbook.
A great example might be maybe the phases of matter, right? We're often taught, a very basic knowledge of there are 3 phases of matter: solids, liquids, and gases. And you might learn some basic properties about what makes a solid, a liquid, or a gas. The new standards require students to dig deeper into that and model sort of matter interactions about how are the particles of solids really moving, and when solids melt, how do those particles behave to become liquid. So you can see it's a much more holistic approach to science in what we might think of science actually being done in the real world. New technologies and new discoveries aren't made by reading textbooks and picking out the bold words. They're made by doing active investigations and exploring the results of those investigations and trying to make sense of them.
Burlington Public Schools superintendent said he thought this new approach will be an improvement.
Well, I think it'll improve it. I think the standards are an improvement over the last round of standards, which were, I think, sort of finalized in about 2006. So again, it's been about 10 years, and these standards are focusing more on application, which I think is a more authentic science learning, which I think is great. Our struggle is going to be to try to find enough time in our school days to make sure that it all gets implemented, and supporting our teachers as they want to incorporate all the standards into their lesson planning.
Professor Papadonis, who is also the founder and previous director of the Burlington Science Center, said he believes parents will be happy with how their children learn under the new science standards.
Parents should be excited. I think Burlington is an example of a district that is a leader in this area already, that they, through the Science Center, especially at the elementary level, have engaged kids in these 8 practices right along. I don't see things changing enormously. I think the Science Center will continue to engage students through live animals, through auditorium programs, through exhibits, through exciting kids with hands-on experiences. This is something that Burlington has been a leader in since 1984. So I don't see a lot changing there.
At Grandview Farm, I'm B News Director Rich Hosford. Back to you in the studio.